Welcome to the Archery Show, the monthly magazine bringing you news and features from around the sport. It's an unprecedented time for archery, with calendars in disarray, and nobody knows when we'll be back on the tournament fields.
Over the last few weeks, the world of sport has been completely overturned. As the world rightly focuses on dealing with the COVID-19 outbreak, tournaments have been cancelled and postponed, and nobody has been left unaffected. The largest postponement of all came from the Olympics. The start date for Tokyo has been pushed back from the 24th of July 2020 to the 23rd of July 2021. It's the first time in modern history that the Games has been delayed, and the first time that the start date has been affected since World War II.
It is an unprecedented situation and probably the largest challenge humanity has faced in most of our lifetimes. We are all glad that archers who have been training hard will eventually get the opportunity to compete safely in Tokyo as planned, even if it happens in 2021.
So where does this leave archery? All competitions have been suspended until the summer, including the planned Olympic and Paralympic qualification events and 3 stages of the Hyundai Archery World Cup. But with much more space in the calendar in 2020, thanks to the Olympics moving to next year, there's a far higher chance that we'll return to the field this season.
We want to shoot events this year, so that our athletes have a chance to compete and we can continue to promote our sport. But we will not restart competitions until it's safe and possible to travel. In this situation, health comes first.
There's much to be resolved with the change in the Olympic timeline. Continental qualification events in the Americas, Oceania and Europe haven't taken place, and neither will Berlin. There are still 41 spots to the Games to be awarded.
All places obtained by the National Olympic Committees in 2019 remain valid for Tokyo 2020. It will be 1 year later, but the excitement will be even better.
The next few months bring many challenges, but the biggest of all is separate from sport. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll beat this together.
Make sure to have a distance, respect your governments, whatever they are suggesting you guys to do. Don't get too many people at the same place.
Let's keep working, guys. We got this.
Take care, and I hope to see you all really soon.
Competition as we know it might be on hiatus, but plenty of archers around the world could still train at home. Since the start of the international lockdown, World Archery has run an online league. It has seen thousands of people take part, shooting whatever distance they can safely get in the house at some pretty ingenious targets. Even if you can't shoot, you can still stay archery active with warm-ups designed for the sport.
There's a couple of benefits of warming up before shooting. First and foremost, it might help increase performance. The second is it can decrease delayed onset muscle soreness or DOMS. Thirdly, it can help reduce the risk of injuries. And lastly, there's an added benefit that's psychological in nature. You feel prepared, you've stuck to a routine, and you feel ready to shoot that day. So what does a warm-up actually do within our bodies? In general warm-ups, we're increasing kinesthetic sense, which is an awareness of what our body is doing and its movements. It helps increase temperature by improving blood flow to our peripheries and help delivering more oxygen to our muscles. Our muscles really need oxygen to work efficiently, so that's really important. Warming up just helps us feel a little bit looser, which is always really nice when you're shooting. In sport-specific warm-ups, we have a little bit more neuromuscular control. It's just a fancy way of saying how our brain communicates with our muscles through our nerves. These exercises look a little bit more similar to what the actual archery shot looks like. Basically, we're training that communication and making it a little bit more efficient. So let's talk about the components that make a good warm-up. You want to have an aerobic component, and that's because you want to increase the temperature to improve blood flow. You also want to have dynamic stretching. By that I mean you're not holding your stretches in a static position. You're basically warming up your muscles, joints, ligaments, tendons. Through some research, we found that dynamic stretching might actually be a little bit more effective. Another kind of dynamic stretching is actually neurodynamics. In this type of stretch, you're stretching nerves that control different groups of muscles in your body. The last component you might want to have in your warm-up is a sport-specific one. And that might look like drawing a band back or, recreating what your actual archery shot looks like. These are all important components, so you might want to take one, two, or all components and integrate them when you do your warm-up next time.
Compound archers shoot 50 meters in international competition, but it wasn't that long ago that the rules were very different.
Archery's competition format has evolved over the years. About a decade ago, the pace of these changes accelerated. The set system was introduced for recurve archers, while compounders tested alternatives to 70 meters.
We look how we could change compound different to recurve. It was difficult to sell two products that were more or less the same. It's like a car company. Trying to sell two cars that are the same model for the same audience was a bit difficult.
In 2010, two of the Archery World Cup stages used a hit-miss target face at 50 meters. The gold scored 1 point, and anything else was a 0.
It was easy to understand, was not so complicated to explain. It was very visual, or you hit or you miss, and it's something could be very easily to be implemented. So we tried, and unfortunately it was not a good idea. The feedback came very clear and very fast. So in 2011, I think we gave up.
Many established archers didn't like the target, and windy conditions made it difficult to watch.
And that's the good thing or the beauty of the World Cups. We could test things, see if it works. If it works, we implement it in the World Championship and in the bigger events. If it's not, we go back to what is working.
Despite the changing rules, the best archers of the time still came out on top in competition. Sergio Pagni won the Archery World Cup final in 2009. And then again in 2010, becoming the first archer to take the title twice.
Competing was so strange. I won the World Cup and they changed the rules. I won the second World Cup and they changed the rules. Every time I won, you change. Every time I won, you change. And they say, no, it's a coincidence.
That year's final was the last time compound archers shot 70 meters internationally. In 2011, the 50-meter format was introduced.
Whatever you do and which kind of rules you want to apply, at the end, you will have two people that fighting for the goal. So it's easy.
Archery equipment has evolved as technology has advanced, but the X10 arrow has been the gold standard for nearly 25 years.
A perfect arrow in a perfect world would be perfectly developed for each individual archer. So I'm George Tekmitchov. I've been involved in archery pretty actively since 1983. I started working for Easton in 1991 as an engineer for Jim Easton in our Los Angeles facility. My job was AC Archery Product Manager as well as Development Engineer. I wanted to create a product that would supersede what was then the top target arrow, the ACE. We had a group of engineers and researchers in Van Nuys dedicated to finding out exactly why arrows perform the way they do and what could be done to make them perform better. At that time, it was a trendy thing in the archery business to try to find a lighter and lighter solution. People thought that a lighter arrow would work better. And some of us had the opposite point of view. We adopted the philosophy that a heavier arrow might possibly be a better solution. Before the Barcelona Olympics, I created just that, a heavier version of an ACE. So here we are at the 92 Olympic Games. We have a number of shooters who are shooting a heavier than normal arrow, and they're performing very well in the windy conditions. So we knew at that point that the next step was going to be to have the mass weight, but also reduce the diameter. We did a lot of R&D. We did a lot of research. We instrumented arrows and launched them, and we had many different shooters come in to shoot arrows to try to identify, are there commonalities? Are there differences? So what we did was we actually developed a weaker tail spine that would absorb those differences more readily, acting a bit like a shock absorber. And that was kind of the key to making the X10 work, was having that variable spine, weaker in the tail, stiffer in the middle, weaker in the front. That turned out in practical testing to have the highest scoring potential. The name that I wanted was ACEX because I wanted it to be an iteration on the well-known ACE arrow, aluminum carbon extreme. Well, wait a minute. We have a very successful target arrow called the X7, and this is the ACEX. How about we call it the X10? Quite frankly, I didn't like it when X10. Nobody's going to like that. I turned out to be quite wrong about that. Easton had a role in developing hydrogen collector tubing for the National Aerospace Plane Project, which was killed because of cost. But a lot of the technologies turned up in other places. And one of those happens to be the X10. The tubing that was developed for that actually became the core tube for the X10 arrow. Yeah, it's 25, 30-year-old technology on a certain level, but no one has come up with something better so far. To make it better and to make it affordable, that's a toughie. Equipment is one part of the three-axis foundation for the shot. You have the shooter, you have the bow, you have the arrow. You have to have harmony between those three things. I like to think the X10 makes it a little easier to find that harmony.
Don't forget to check out our online league if you're stuck for things to do during this lockdown. We'll be back in May. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and let's beat this coronavirus together.